Clean, straight holes without babysitting the drill. That is what sold me on this machine. This is the WEN 4214T. This benchtop drill press fits in that sweet spot for home shops and small professional benches where you need accuracy and repeatability, but you do not have room for a floor-standing monster. If you are a woodworker who cares about consistent hole spacing, a maker building jigs and fixtures, or a weekend fabricator who occasionally needs to punch through mild steel without wander, this is designed for you. It is compact enough to live on a bench and heavy enough to stay put when the bit bites. The look and feel are exactly what matter in daily use. The head, table, and base are cast iron, which gives it the kind of mass that kills vibration. The table raises and lowers on a rack and pinion, so you are not hugging a slippery column to make an adjustment. I can move the table with one hand and lock it down with a quick twist, and it stays there. The chuck is a keyed style that actually grips, and the 3-spoke feed handle has the right amount of throw for controlled pecking in metal or a steady plunge in hardwood. There is a speed control lever on the side that lets me change the spindle speed without moving a belt by hand, which is the whole reason I wanted this model over the simpler belt swap machines. A small digital readout shows live spindle speed, and the built-in laser crosshair and the work light live right where you would expect, so I do not have to fumble to find them when I am mid-project. Setup was straightforward. The heaviest lift was getting the head onto the column, and I recommend a second set of hands for that part. From opening the box to making the first test hole took me about an hour at an easy pace, including squaring the table to the spindle and checking the laser alignment. I did a quick check for wobble with a straight dowel in the chuck, and what I saw was tight enough that I felt confident going straight to a real project. The variable speed lever felt a little stiff on the first few sweeps, and then it loosened up and settled into a smooth motion. The noise level is a low hum at slower speeds and a quick whoosh as you climb into the higher end. It is not something I would run without hearing protection, but it does not scream like a shop vacuum. The power switch is a large paddle that is easy to smack off if something goes sideways, and that alone gives me peace of mind when I am working with a long bit. Once I started using it, the core performance came down to two things: control and consistency. The speed range spans from about 580 to around 3,200 revolutions per minute, which matters in real life because I can run a Forstner bit in walnut slow enough to get a clean rim, and then bump the speed up for a small twist bit in plywood without stopping the workflow. The spindle travel is generous for a benchtop unit, so I can drill through thicker stock in a single plunge instead of doing awkward stack moves. The chuck holds a bit up to 5/8 of an inch, which covers everything I regularly use, from small pilot bits to a hefty step bit for electrical box knockouts. Down pressure through the handle feels linear, and the return spring is firm without snapping back. After a handful of passes, I started to lean on it more, and the machine did not chatter or dance on the bench. That stability pays off in clean exit holes and round bores. To see how it behaves under mixed tasks, I ran a quick set of shop scenarios. I drilled a grid of dog holes into a maple bench top using a 1-inch Forstner bit. At a slow speed with steady chip clearing, every hole came out with crisp edges and minimal tear out. I set the depth stop to keep the bit from punching through, and the stop was repeatable. My caliper readings across the grid were within a hair. Switching gears, I grabbed a 1/2-inch twist bit, clamped a piece of mild steel angle, slowed the speed, and added cutting fluid. With gentle pecking, the bit tracked true without walking, which tells me the laser got me close and the table square did the rest. The chips came out in tight curls and the motor did not lug down. I also used a hole saw to open a 2-inch pass-through in a piece of softwood. That is where lesser presses can bog and rattle. This one kept its composure, and the variable speed control let me nudge the speed until the cut felt right. I put it into a furniture build, drilling hinge cup recesses in cabinet doors. Those hinge cups want a very clean rim and a flat bottom. I clamped a simple fence to the table using the T-slots, lined up with the laser, and used the depth stop so every pocket was identical. The light-emitting diode work light helped me see pencil marks even when the shop light was behind me casting shadows. The holes were clean, and more importantly, every door sat the same on the case. That kind of repeatability is why a drill press earns its space in a small shop. I also used it to drill through a stack of aluminum angle for a closet track. I spaced the pieces with a sacrificial board, set the speed to mid-range, and just walked down the line. No wandering, no oblong holes, and no swearing. A few thoughtful touches make a bigger difference than I expected. The mechanical variable speed is the star here. Being able to set speed with a lever and see it on the display means I actually change speeds to suit the bit instead of leaving it at one setting out of laziness. The laser crosshair, once dialed in, saves me time on repetitive work. It is not a precision instrument, but for getting close, it does its job. The depth stop is simple and positive, and it locks without creeping. The table tilts for angled holes, and the bevel scale is readable enough that I can return to 0 without setting up a square every single time. The keyed chuck has a dedicated storage slot, and that tiny detail means I do not lose it in a drawer. The cord length reaches the back of my bench without pulling the machine to the edge, which sounds trivial until you have to rearrange the whole workspace for a short cord. It is not perfect, and I want to be honest about that. The laser needed a quick tweak after the first few sessions, likely from normal vibration. Once I dialed it in again, it stayed put, but I keep a small screwdriver nearby just in case. The light-emitting diode work light is more of a spotlight than a flood. It is great for illuminating the bit point, but it does not wash the whole table with light. The speed change lever can feel stiff if you try to crank it while the spindle is under load. Ease off the feed, let the spindle spin freely and the lever glides. Keep that rhythm and it is a non-issue. There is a bit of dust buildup around the belt housing over time, so I added a quick brush out to my Saturday cleanup, and that keeps the innards happy. The paint on the table will scuff under clamps, which is purely cosmetic but worth noting. Over a few weeks of projects, a pattern emerged. I stopped second-guessing hole quality. I would clamp the workpiece, pick a speed that matches the bit and material, set the depth, and go. No drama, no wrestling. The cast iron mass takes care of the vibration, and the variable speed takes care of the cut feel. That translates into fewer mistakes and less time sanding or plugging ugly holes. I still reach for a hand drill for quick pilot holes on site, but for anything that matters, this is where I want to be. A specific example is a jig I built for shelf pin holes in a bookcase. I marked a reference line, clamped the jig and the side panel to the drill press table, and used a self-centering bit at a higher speed to avoid tear out. With the depth set and the fence locked, I ran a full column of holes that matched the next panel perfectly. Later that same day, I slowed the drill down and used a countersink to clean up bolt holes in a piece of steel flat bar. The shift from wood to metal was fast because I did not have to move a belt by hand. That convenience matters when you are bouncing between tasks. One more detail for those who care about maintenance and longevity. The quill return and depth stop did not need any out-of-the-box fiddling beyond a basic check. The column and rack benefit from a light wipe of machine oil to keep the table elevating smoothly. I also pulled the chuck once to check for debris behind the taper, reseated it, and it has held since. I like tools that disappear into the workflow, and this one does that after the first day. So who should consider this drill press? If you are building furniture, shop fixtures, cutting boards, or doing general-purpose woodworking where clean holes matter, it is an easy recommendation. If you are a hobby metalworker who occasionally drills mild steel or aluminum and values a machine that does not skitter across the bench, it will do the job as long as you respect speed and feed. If you need extreme spindle travel or you routinely drill large holes in thick steel plate, a floor-standing press with more horsepower will serve you better. For most small shops and garages, this balance of size, weight, and variable speed control hits the target. The short version is this: I trust it. It has enough power for the bits I actually use. The variable speed control means I work at the right pace, and the cast iron build keeps the bit on track. It has quirks, but nothing that gets in the way once you know the machine. If you have been fighting with a hand drill for tasks that demand accuracy, stepping up to this feels like putting your work on rails. Check the comments of this video for a link to see the current pricing of the WEN 4214T. Thank you for watching.